G'day and welcome to another episode of Heat Check, another jam-packed episode it is, and it is our season final, so we're going to have some fun along the way. The segment that no one but me has been waiting for, the best 5 names in basketball in the world, according to yours truly. That is going to be fun at the end of this show. Heaps of news to get to before we get to that. I'm Joel Peterson. He is basketball.com.au analyst Michael Houben. Mick, we're going to go out with a bang.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. I'm looking forward to it. I came all the way back from Bendigo for you, Joel.
Well, he says, we're 30 seconds into the show and you've already mentioned my favourite place in the world, so we are off to a flying start. Hey, a big news week. We've got heaps to get through as we go throughout. We've got national team duties. We've got Summer League, of course, which at the time of recording is already underway, so lots to discuss. But there's been some great stuff with a couple of our NBA stars in recent times. So Josh Giddey and Dyson Daniels, they've been spending a lot of time down under. They've been at the footy. They've been at the NBL 1. They appeared recently in an article together for News Corp. Clearly a bit of a budding bromance between the two here. And as they say, happy to share the spotlight. They're sharing business investments and that kind of thing. This is quite the little partnership.
I love it. These guys are clearly very tight, going all the way back to their AIS days, both Victorians, of course. And I love to see them as well, coming back to Australia every single year. It's great to see that connection.
And they're obviously, really invested. So, Dyson, a big Richmond Tigers fan. They've been at NBL 1 games and all that kind of thing. So they stay in touch with the local hoop scene, which is very cool to see.
That's right. And we've seen as well, both a bit of fashionistas a little bit. They're into their fashion. Dyson particularly, he's got his own little line going on. They got so many ventures early on in their career.
Yeah, a little bit like you and I, just fashionistas, just plying their trade. So that's it's good to see them doing their thing, and we look forward to seeing them. Josh Giddey even mentioned that he might play NBL 1 in seasons to come. That'd be quite the development.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath, but I get it. He even spoke about that game that he played filling in at the Open Age not too long ago. I think he copped a little slack from his agent for that one, but you can tell he just loves playing at any level.
Yeah, absolutely he does, absolutely. Some more good news this week as well for another Australian NBA name, Jock Landale, who is setting his sights on the Memphis Grizzlies as his new home in the world's top league. We know what he's done across world basketball, of course, here in the NBL, most recently with the Houston Rockets, and the Grizzlies got a spot at the big man position, and he is going to help them fill it.
That's right. We've seen him in the NBA for a few years now, and we know he is an established NBA rotation player at this point. I think this was just the result of a roster crunch. We know Houston have been throwing the sink at trying to be a win-now team next season, and he was a casualty of that. But he got a new spot very quickly, and I think there is going to be some great opportunity, particularly early in the season, in that 5 spot for the Grizzlies.
What are the strengths of this man's game? We've seen him at national team, of course. What does he bring to the table for the Grizz?
A little bit of everything. That's what I like about Jock. He's a real workhorse. He's a fantastic defensive player, but we saw this past season, he actually shot his best shooting splits of all time as well, nearly 50% from the field, 40% from 3. So he's someone that can stretch the floor and be one of those efficient role players as well.
We'll come back to the Grizzlies in their big man situation a little bit later on in the show as well. There's some interesting developments there on our local level. Some big news for the Perth Wildcats this week. We've been waiting and just sitting to see what they do with their roster, and they've signed another next star, French phenom Noah Kukueg. So he's come out of that Under-19 World Cup in recent times. Another big. We've seen them with Almanza, we've seen them with Alex Sarr, of course, have success. What do you make of this addition?
That's right. We've seen his name sort of floating around the Perth Wildcats for a while. It's great that it's finally locked in and official. I think we saw it coming, and the first thing that comes to mind, this is a trend of international big men next stars that have been going to the Perth Wildcats. So I guess the question is, how does he differ from Alex? How does he differ from Izan Almanza? Now, positionally very similar, both 4-5 sort of hybrids in that kind. But in terms of the skill set, he's a little bit different. We just saw in the highlights there, he's incredibly bouncy, incredibly mobile, very athletic, definitely more athletic than Almanza, probably more than Sarr as well. I think Sarr obviously made up in spades with his size and his wingspan, but something that we saw particularly there, he's going to excel running the rim, he's going to excel in transition. It's just the offensive skill set that needs to develop a little bit more.
Do you think there is a case that Perth will actually need him to play some minutes?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at this roster right now, they're struggling for bigs as it is. We're waiting to see if they're going to get that marquee 5. But even if we assume that that happens, they still need some depth at that position. When you look at the rest of the roster, you can slide Doolittle up to the 5. He's obviously more of a 3-4 type. David Aquera is tall, but probably doesn't have the frame for it. So they're really banking on Noah for those backup 5 minutes.
So that's Noah Kukueg, the French teenager, another splendidly named signing in the NBL this week for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. The Belgian Vrens Blijenberg signs with them. So in the one day, they lost Amari Moore, who we thought was going to do all kinds of good things for Josh King this season. And then they've gone to find Blijenberg in Europe. So 24, 25 years old. What does he bring to the table?
Yeah, a big week for Southeast, right? And you know I'm bummed about Amari Moore. I was so
Yeah.
hyped about him. I thought he was going to be a fantastic fit. But this is a great addition. Vrens is a really talented player. You can see in these highlights here, very unique. At nearly 6'10", he can really handle the ball. He passes with a bit of flair. He can shoot from outside. He is a very modern player, and at 6'10", he's going to be able to play the 3. He's going to be able to play the 4. I think there are some parallels to Matt Hurt in terms of that position. I think they're both, finesse players, scorers. They're both guys that struggle with contact a little bit. But in terms of differences, he's someone that isn't going to play in the post as much, but he's going to do a lot more on the perimeter in terms of facilitating and in terms of handling the ball.
I'd love to tell you where he most recently played, but I'll need the entirety of the off-season to get through his most recent team name. But he's going to be an exciting signing for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. The WNBA is well and truly in full swing. We know, of course, the WNBL is coming up to an exciting season as well. There's some movement on that front, of course, in free agency stakes. But Sandy Brondello, of course, the coach of the Opals, the coach of the New York Liberty, the reigning WNBA champions, she's going to coach the All-Star team as well. So Team Collier, Team Clark, the two teams in this year's WNBA All-Star game, and Sandy Brondello is the coach of Team Collier.
Yeah, massive appointment for her. They're having a fantastic season, the Liberty. She's bringing Brianna Stewart with her as well. She's going to have her very handy, so what an awesome appointment for her.
So Kelsey Plum is on that team, Paige Beckers, who's of course one of the most exciting talents, Angel Reese, who's playing with their own Beck Allen at the Chicago Sky, and Courtney Williams, who spent some time with the Perth Lynx a little while ago as well in WNBL, and is an absolute bucket. The handle on Courtney Williams is going to be fun to watch, so that could be a little bit of fun. And of course, Sandy Brondello played alongside Michelle Timms in the very first WNBA All-Star game back in 1999. So a very cool full circle moment. And of course, the Opals have got a big period coming up. So Sandy won't be with them, but she will be watching closely, and she will be in charge of Team Collier in the WNBA All-Star game, which is very, very cool indeed. Finally, before we move on to some more Summer League related news, Mick, you've just spent the last couple of days up in Bendigo, beautiful part of the world. The Under-16 Nationals are back there again this year. So for a second year, they're being played out at Bendigo Stadium. What's caught your eye up there over the last couple of days?
Well, I tell you what's caught my ears first and foremost, all the pool noodles, there are drums going on, there are horns. You're lucky I'm answering your questions. I can barely hear you right now, Joel. It is an insane atmosphere. It's almost like a college sort of vibe in terms of the atmosphere and the friends and family getting around these games. Obviously super young in terms of the age group we're talking about here. 2010 and 2011 born athletes. There are some standouts already, but there is so much physical and mental development still to be had in their careers. However, I'm sure, we look back in 5 years' time, some of the names on these lists are going to be doing big things.
Yeah, and of course, you look at the names last year. So the girls' MVP, Olivia Aletrovic, has now been named in the GEM squad. So having dominated that tournament for Queensland last year, Antonio Brown was one of the players I really liked watching there last year for New South Wales. He's gone on to some good things too, most recently Eurocamp. So plenty of talent up there in Bendigo, and you can follow all that action, of course, on the various platforms. Summer League is coming up. Now, Summer League, we look forward to it every year. There's coaches involved, there's players involved. It is underway at the time of recording, so we're getting going there. And the man over your shoulder, Will Magnay, is, of course, part of this with the Memphis Grizzlies. There's plenty of names there, so former players who've recently been drafted, the likes of Lockie Olbrich, of course, Rocco Zikarsky too. A lot to like about this list. Such an exciting time for Australian basketball.
I think the first thing you think of when you see this list is just the sheer representation. There are so many names here. We have been getting an increasing number year after year, but this is just insane. It's going to be so fun for us. I guess the question's going to be, who's going to play a big role and who's going to be flying halfway across the world to, warm a bench for, a week or two. I think Alex Tui, it's exciting that he's finally got clearance. He's going to be playing, but there's so many names going forward.
This man is one of them now. We have our favourites here on this program. Will Magnay is certainly in that category for me. He's got an opportunity with the Memphis Grizzlies, which is really, really interesting given they do have a couple of injury concerns at the big man spot. They brought Jock Landale in. Seems like there's a door for this man to make it back to the NBA.
It is. This seems like the most substantial appointment in terms of realising a real NBA opportunity. And that has been the report so far, that he has a real chance here. Now, I think it's a win-win. You know, if he gets an NBA spot, fantastic. If he's back, I want to see that Bannon Magnay frontcourt for Tassie as well. But I think Tassie will, you know, be potentially looking for some other options if he gets a spot with the Grizzlies as well.
Selfishly, I hope that he's back. But Christine Finnegan was saying on SE and Tassie this week that, you know, they've kept that third import spot open. They will know in the next week, hopefully, exactly what he's doing. But you know, it would be fair to say that they might be preparing for life without him.
It does seem that way, and you know, it would be smart for them to exercise all possible outcomes and have those contingencies in place, those plan Bs, Cs, Ds, and you know, thankfully they've had that import spot up their sleeve to account for that. Maybe they knew that Magnay was on the precipice of one of these opportunities.
Another big rumbler inside to get a gig is Sam Menenga, now of course the New Zealand Breakers, formerly the Cairns Taipans. He is heading to the LA Lakers, having put together a really strong season over there in Puerto Rico.
That's right, only 23 years old, so he has so much great basketball and development ahead of him. He was a late addition to this Lakers squad, played his first game against the Miami Heat, had 4 points, 2 of 2 shooting, 1 assist in 16 minutes. That's great. I don't know if that's going to make the Breakers scared about losing him anytime too soon, but I think he's one NBL jump away from really carving out the potential for some NBA opportunities. So I'm excited to see him come back, have another leap forward with the Breakers. I think he's in a prime position to do that. And then maybe next Summer League we'll see some big things from him.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the end of the road for Sam Menenga in that sense at all. And what a story for Boali Bales in the last 12 months, who didn't find himself on an NBL roster last season. He's been balling out in the NBL 1, and now he gets an opportunity as well with one of the storied franchises in the competition, the New York Knicks.
It's not often we see someone go from NBL 1 straight to Summer League. It's a very unique situation, and you know, we spoke about warming benches. I think that's probably what he'll do for the majority of his time. But nonetheless, still a fantastic opportunity for the young man. And I'm drawing a connection here. You look at that New York Knicks staff. Brian Goorjian is on that coaching staff. That's the connection that I'm drawing here. I've heard that there's a real endearment for Boali Bales from Gorge. And, you know, while there may not be a spot for him on the Kings this coming season, you know, it wouldn't surprise me to see them cross paths in the future.
So that's a bit of the talent, of course, that we know of that's going there. Now, there will be talent that comes from Summer League back to our competitions here. Of course, in the NBL, I should say, Melbourne United are on the hunt for a position. The Perth Wildcats are on the hunt. The Cairns Taipans still looking for probably half their roster, and Adam Ford's over there with the Utah Jazz. So no doubt some teams will be watching very, very closely just to see exactly what they can prize out of this market.
If I was a general manager, I don't know if I'd have the patience to wait until Summer League to pick up my imports. But, you know, there are some great returns to be had. This is the sort of time of year where, you know, the dust settles. Guys that were aiming for big European opportunities or potentially NBA opportunities, suddenly they're looking for a spot and the NBL starts looking quite attractive. So we could see some really big names, and we know that those teams that you mentioned have quite a budget to work with in terms of those positions.
Yeah, plenty of coverage of that, of course, basketball.com.au, the NBL socials and app. You can find all of those details across the course of the next little while, with plenty of faces and names that you'll be familiar with in that part of the world for NBA Summer League. Something else that you've been keeping a close eye on in recent times is, I guess, the next generation, especially of Australian talent and world basketball talent. The under-19 Emus were at the World Cup recently. Unfortunately, didn't go as they'd planned. They ran into some really strong competition along the way, losing to Germany eventually. But what did you make, before we get into some of those players individually, what did you make of the Emus' time at that tournament as a whole?
Well, I think you touched on some important context there, which was that the competition was really tough. We were in essentially the pool of death. We had France, the USA and Cameroon. Now, we were competitive against the US, kept it within 20 points. We also did really well against Cameroon. It did help that they scored for us. That was definitely helpful.
Definitely. Double overtime, but the performance against France was really impressive.
They were fantastic against France, and we know it. France is a powerhouse. Noah was actually playing on that French team as well, despite having quite a quiet World Cup, but we handled business there. And it's worth saying as well, we got, you know, knocked out of that gold medal contention with that loss to Germany. But this is a powerful generation from the Germans. They have a first-round pick on their roster. They have Christian Andersen playing the point. He had 18 points. That's a really tough team. And, you know, we finished 6th. I think that's admirable in the scheme of things.
So let's go through some of their performances individually. You can read a big wrap-up from you on basketball.com.au, which is well worth having a look at. Roman Sialipa is a subject of fascination. He has been on this show. He has been throughout Australian basketball. Exactly what is next for him? Where do you think his future lies?
Yeah, this was fascinating to see, and as it pertains to his future as well, I think people were curious to see, is he going to continue this bully ball at this level? This is the pinnacle of youth basketball, and I can't believe it. He did. He was bullying everybody out there. He's too strong for wings. He's too fast for the forwards and the centres of this competition. And, you know, he can just put his head down and get it done. He was the leading scorer in this competition. However, there was a bit of a flip side to that. You know, some of the things that we've been looking for him to develop, that left hand, the shooting, didn't really come across. I think that is going to hurt him at his next step, wherever that may be. We're hearing Pittsburgh, that's sort of the rumour that's floating around. I think college would be a nice next step for him from a basketball perspective. But this is Roman, Joel. We don't know what's going to happen next, so we're just going to have to watch this space.
Yeah, he is such a fascinating prospect on so many levels, but great to see him doing well over there. Jacob Furphy's headed to UConn, and he shot the lights out throughout this tournament. He, in a couple of these games, was very close to being our best player.
I love Jacob Furphy. He was pretty much neck to neck with Roman in terms of his output all the way up until the last game. That game against Canada, 3 of 18 from the field, 1 to forget. I think he just ran out of steam. But he is a fantastic player. He is someone who is kind of just the old school quintessential Australian talent. He has a very complete skill set. He's a very high field player. He's a leader as well. But I think his most admirable quality is he has an incredible level of poise to his game. He doesn't get sped up. He's not bothered by athleticism. And I think that's going to bode really well for UConn, which is one of the biggest programs you can go to.
And of course, brother Johnny's been doing some good things with the Pacers of late as well, going all the way to the NBL Finals as part of that program. When you're at the Bendigo Stadium this week, you'll see hanging from the rafters the jersey of Ricky Daniels. His son Dash was part of this team. Next star with Melbourne United. Uneven performances to start. How did you see him develop throughout this tournament?
It's worth noting he's a bottom age player. He is a lot younger than the rest of this competition. In the short story of it was he had a couple of really great performances, and he had some that he'd probably rather forget. But that is normal. That's par of the course for his development cycle. Now, if we're looking through the lens of a top 10 pick, which is what Giovoni and ESPN are mocking him as, I would say that was disappointing. But in the lens of having a young player, I think being on the team is a fantastic achievement, and he was an important player for this team, and he had some fantastic performances. I think as it pertains to Melbourne United, we saw that maybe he's not an instant contributor. There are a lot of areas of his game that he's going to have to develop, but what a fantastic situation to develop his game.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than under Dean Vickerman and the tutelage of the Melbourne United crew. And a shout out to our friends across the ditch as well, because New Zealand had a really good run in this tournament. There's a lot of really promising, exciting young talent on these New Zealand teams that looks to be coming through in waves for the next generation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pumped for them. This is a really fantastic generation of talent. On one hand, I'm excited. On the other hand, I'm a little bit like, I'm envisioning these Tall Blacks games that we're going to have to play against them for the next decade. Getting a little bit scared because they're almost a little bit too good. They outdid us in this tournament. I think they finished 4th. They had a fantastic event. And some of the individual talent, they got Julius Halifa-Noah, the 7-footer. He's at Georgetown right now. Oscar Goodman at Michigan. Jackson Ball, who we've been talking about, tearing up the New Zealand League. He's been doing a fantastic job. He's Wisconsin bound. And if you go up and down this roster, it's Division 1 talent, top to bottom.
Yeah, it's really, really exciting for Kiwi basketball. So a lot of good stuff happening in that space, and no better man to be across it than our own Michael Houben here on Heat Check. And you can read his piece, basketball.com.au, wrapping up the Aussie Emus and their campaign at that Under-19 World Cup. The Gems are in action coming up as well, so it is World Cup season. Here's the Gems squad. So they start over the course of the weekend. We've talked about Sataya Fagan on this show previously. There's so many exciting names there that are part of this squad. Renee Garlop's got the reins. So they're over in Europe for their World Cup, and hopefully they can make a good run at it as well.
That's right. They have all the firepower here to do a lot of damage. I'm excited to see Monique Williams. She's Vanderbilt bound. She's a really exciting talent. And we've also got Callie Hinder. She grew up in the US. We haven't seen her. Daughter of Rusty. You know, it'll be exciting to see what she can bring to the table as well. And a slightly easier pull than the Emus had as well. So that'll be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So fingers crossed, we'll be watching them closely. Basketball.com.au for all the latest on the Gems as they progress. Let's stay with our women on a national sense. The Opals are going to be in action in coming days. So the Asia Cup, so this being played in China, their first game Sunday, then they play Monday, then they play Tuesday. So they've got the Philippines, Lebanon and Japan to start. There is the squad. Great to see Sarah Blitzarves back as part of this. There's so many names there that are so exciting as part of Australian basketball for the future. No Maddie Rocci, no Shyla Heal, who are both injured, unfortunately, of recent times, but that looks a pretty strong squad.
A really strong squad. Some players that have, participated in events previously. We've got some new players that are having their debuts as well. But they're going to have to go and handle business in these games.
Absolutely. Alex Wilson is one of those, or Ali Wilson's making her debut for the Opals, coming off a really strong WNBL season with the Bendigo Spirit. She's just been at the 3x3 World Cup as well with the Kangaroos. An absolute bucket, and looking forward to seeing what she can do.
A very well-deserved appointment. As you said, a massive year. She had a great year with the Perth Lynx, had career highs in terms of her points and her rebounding. And in terms of that 3-on-3 as well, not only did she participate for Australia, but she was also our leading scorer. She was really fantastic, shot the cover off the ball.
Absolutely. And Chloe Bibby's another fascinating name in this arrangement. We've tracked her development. She spent some time with Golden State in the WNBA. She's been dominant over in Spain and in Poland, winning back-to-back MVPs as well. And now she gets to really step into this national team with all the confidence that she's been playing with recently.
I don't think anyone's had a bigger 12-month period than she has. She's been awesome, and I thought she did everything she could for the Valkyries. What a whirlwind that was. She started in pre-season, and then she got cut as part of those ruthless cuts in the WNBA that we do see. Got the call-up back again mid-season and had double digits in 2 straight games when she started out, only to get cut again. Now, I think she did all she can. I think she's had a lot of momentum come her way, and I can't wait to see what she does in these games.
Absolutely. So here's the dates. Of course, there's plenty happening. So that is coming up just around the corner, the Asia Cup. And, it's going to be exciting to see how our women do. Basketball.com.au to follow along with all of that as the Opals take on the world. Paul Goris will be in charge of that team without Sandy Brondello. Christy Harrower on the staff as well. So it's very well led in terms of Australian basketball experience and pedigree. Now, it is our final show of the year, and our final order of business. We've been promising this throughout the course of the season. As we track throughout the globe, we've been just keeping a track of where team names end up. I've got a particular eye for this. We've discussed it a couple of times. Are you ready to go through what is my personal list of 5?
Let's do it, Joel. I know you got some good ones in the bank. Let's go.
I'm going to just preface this by saying it's a little bit off kilter. They may not be the weirdest names. There might be some sort of mitigating circumstances with some of these. I want to kick you off with an honourable mention, and this is a logo-based selection. We go to Croatia. So this is Split, beautiful coastal town in Croatia. And the meeting to decide the logo here is one that I'm really invested in. We are a basketball team. We are from a place called Split. So why don't we split a basketball? Glorious. Why not?
It's about as literal as you can get, right? I'm a big fan of it. The place is called Split. That's fantastic. Big fan.
So the Split, with the Split basketball, I think that's an honourable mention. That's on the outside looking in. Let's go to number 5. We're going to go to the German second division here, the Kreilsheim Merlins. So Keandre Cook played for this club before he came to the Brisbane Bullets. So not the Wizards, not the Magic. They've gone specific with their choice of sorcerer, and they have identified Merlin, and that logo, that is mean.
It's a mean logo. It reminds me of the Northside Wizards a little bit, but as you said, just a little bit more specific.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, not the Wizards. We're not going with a group of people here. We want Merlin, and we want him to be the top of the tree. So that's in the German second division. We kick things off. Let's go to Argentina for number 4. Obera Tennis Club. It's a basketball team. It's called the Tennis Club. Now, I understand that in world sport, we have, the Bayern Munichs, the Barcelonas, all these clubs that have their sort of sporting entities that have a basketball division. Not many of them lead so heavily into one particular part, and then the logo that they've clearly just made in clip art to bolt a couple of people onto the bottom, playing some of these sports, I think that's glorious.
I'm assuming this is a tennis racket. There is nothing distinguishable in this logo that tells me that they have anything to do with basketball. They might be playing with rackets as far as I'm concerned.
And just the clip art nature of it. Who do you play basketball for? I play for the Obera Tennis Club. Oh yeah, of course you do. Of course you do. So we go to Argentina for that one. Number 3, this is a team we've spoken about before. This is the Nanjing Monkey Kings. So not the monkeys, not the kings, but we're going to the kings of the primate world. And I, for one, welcome our new Monkey King overlords.
I think there's a bit of a running theme about being extremely specific.
Yep.
I don't know if it's
100%.
Something about getting lost in translation, but Monkey Kings is awesome. Big fan.
See the little crown on the monkey as well? So just making sure the monkey is an ordained monkey and not just your common run-of-the-mill monkey. I like that. Number 2. This is number 2 because I don't actually know that they're in. I've researched this. I don't know that they're still playing. As last as I could tell, they played their last game in 2021. This is the Bulgarian second division, massive competition, of course, and a team called Slow and Furious that appears to be literal. It is a turtle. The turtle looks to have like a Formula One car style wing, not the Fast and the Furious. Slow and furious, very defined pace of play. If they were still playing and I could sort of more verify their status in international basketball, it would have been number 1 with a bullet.
I don't know how this is not number 1. I don't know how you verified this. Like, I don't understand. Like, did you just pull this off Google Images?
It was about an hour of my Sunday morning going through game logs in the Bulgarian second division, which, as you can imagine, was not the easiest of tasks.
I got to say I feel like branding inconsistencies here as well. Not just the lack of any pixels or wording, but also if we're Slow and Furious, what is with the flames? What's with the spoiler? Yep. I'm very confused, but yeah, love it.
Yeah, it is great. And then it looks a bit Looney Tunes with the way the logo's framed there as well, which I absolutely love. And number 1, we discussed it on the show previously. It is the Iwate Big Bulls of the Japanese second division, because they're not just the Bulls. Bulls are a big animal. I've not seen many small bulls, but Iwate wants you to know that they are the Bulls and that they are extremely big.
I knew this was coming, number 1. You have been fascinated with this team all season. We were even talking about it during the Japan games.
Yep.
You was looking up, different paraphernalia for the Big Bulls.
Yeah, I wanted to buy some merchandise for the Big Bulls. I wanted to get a big plush bull like you get at the local carnival or something. But, again, we've got flames. And one of the best parts is the rich history of the Iwate Big Bulls since 2011, if you don't mind. So 14 years of unabashed, unrivaled history in the Japanese second division, the Iwate Big Bulls. That is, I'm not sure it's the best, but it is my favourite team name. It's the one nearest and dearest to my heart. And Japan is a hotbed for great team names.
I think there's just something about maybe the broken English and the way that it gets translated that just, everything is so curious. We were talking about the B3 League the other week, and there was the Yokohama Excellence, the Tokyo Trains, Team Tri-Hoops.
Okinawa Tri-Hoop Z.
That's the one, yep. Sorry, I forgot all the little extra details and pizzazz in there with the Z. But there's just so much character to these leagues. And look, these are outrageous. These are ridiculous, but I love it. I think it is awesome for basketball.
Yep. So next season, I reckon we're going to have to come up with your top 5 as well. So I'm happy to take any feedback you've got at Joel B. Peterson on the socials. You can find him at Mike Houben Hoops as well. That is the top 5 international basketball team names, and I'm sure a lot of you will be in furious disagreement with that particular list. And that sees us out for another season of Heat Check. Thanks for your company throughout, Mick. Thanks for your insight, for all the deep dives you do. Of course, we can keep reading you at basketball.com.au, but it's been a hell of a lot of fun, and that was a good way to finish.
Thank you, mate. That was great. You did a fantastic job researching there, and hopefully I can live it up next season.
Thanks to all the crew behind the scenes as well, partly for having to sit through and put those logos together and put up with that rubbish from me across the course of the last couple of weeks. And thanks for you for watching at home as well. We look forward to seeing you next off-season back here on Heat Check.